Welcome everyone to another episode of Leading from the Library, our Future Ready Librarian podcast series. I am Shannon Miller, and I'm so excited to have my dear friend Jennifer with me today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. Let's start off just by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the library world.
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Casa-Todd. I am a teacher librarian in Ontario, Canada. So this show just got international friend. I have been doing that. This is my 5th year. Prior to that, I worked as a literacy consultant at the district level at the York Catholic District School Board. And before that, I was an English teacher, religion teacher, special education teacher, co-op teacher, ESL teacher, media studies teacher, you named it, I taught it, all at the high school level. And I've been teaching for many, many, many years. Also, probably in about 2017, I became an author, with my book that came out, Social Media, Moving Students from Digital Citizenship to Digital Leadership. In November, I co-authored a children's book, and that was just such a labor of love. And one of my former students illustrated the book. So that was super, super special. And I have an upcoming book called Raising Digital Leaders, and that will be out, I think, in a couple of weeks. And that's kind of a parent companion to social media.
Oh, I can't even wait. I didn't know about that one. And so I am really excited. Yeah, I mean, your social media is just one of my favorites, one that I recommend all the time. And so that is a great one. So it's good to know there's another one. And I didn't know about the children's book. So tell us more about that, like the name and what it's about.
Yeah. So it was published by EduMatch, and I co-authored with Lee Castle. And Lee Castle, if you you would recognize her from the Digital Human Library. And if you don't recognize the Digital Human Library, you need to know the Digital Human Library. It's an amazing undertaking, and she's such an entrepreneur. And we always, digital citizenship is something we're both really passionate about. We both lead a group called Global Ed Student Chat. So we have students who, once a month, they talk about issues that are important to them. And so really a student voice and using social media in really positive contexts for a variety of literacies is something we're both very, very passionate about. So we sort of said, we should write a book one day. And then Sahar, one of my students, shared when we were going down to a graduation ceremony, and she was helping, said how much she really wanted to illustrate a children's book. And I'm like, So yeah, so sort of the stars aligned, and it was really neat to work with her. Most people with an illustrator just say, illustrate the book, and really don't have a lot of contact with them. Whereas Sahar was really integral in sort of telling, like, Aubrey, who is Aubrey? What are her motivations? What is the story we want to tell? And who's the grandmother? So it's an intergenerational tale about storytelling and how technology can connect us in many ways. So, and this was pre-COVID, and yet it's really kind of timely too. So
definitely. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. That is so amazing. And I love the student connection too. So that is awesome. Congrats, my friend. You've been busy.
Thank you. And I realized when I was introducing myself, I was remiss in sharing that I am also part of the ISTE Librarians Network. I'm an executive member, and I work on the professional development side of things. And that's, a great organization, just like Future Ready Librarians. It's just a collaborative, generous, wonderful group of librarians. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope we can all be together at ISTE this summer, right? So, but it's good to know that we can be together online too.
It's true. It's not the same. I miss my Shannon hugs.
I do too. I miss you too, friend. I know. Well, thinking about, like, when I look at your work and I think about even when, like, we first met, was it in Texas, right? I think, or Florida.
It was. I
Florida.
think it was in tech. No, you're right. It was in Florida at FETC.
Yes, yes. And just, following your voice and everything you do, the thing that always comes to mind, of course, is your work around digital citizenship. And the thing that I really love, and being, someone that works with even our little preschoolers all the way up to our 12th grade, and we've been one-to-one for 12 years, we think constantly about our digital citizens. But the thing that I love about the work that you do in your book, of course, social media, is that digital leadership. So tell us a little bit about, how that started. Like, was, the work that you did before you were a librarian, is it something you always thought of, or did it come to play, especially when you became a librarian? Tell us a little bit about that.
So absolutely. If you've heard me speak before, the impetus really for social media and my interest in digital citizenship, but then moving beyond digital citizenship, was really an interview that my daughter had in grade 10 when she was asked, what social media are you on and what will I learn about you if I go there? And it was like the ultimate mom fail, right? And I realized that I used Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, right, in really productive ways. I learned, I used it to learn and to connect with others. I mean, I met you online first. I met so many people that have become so near and dear to me online before I met them in person. And so I started to think about how I was working with my daughter, and then ultimately then back in a school, right? I was at the literacy consultant at the time, and I realized that I was talking to teachers about connecting online. And then when we talked to our kids, it was always, don't do this, shut this down, ban it, right? Like it's all, the kids are going to do this, right? And it started to dawn on me that we were doing our kids a disservice by only focusing on what they shouldn't do or what they couldn't do, and not allowing them, and we know so much of the research that tells us that it really is the work that's done in context that sticks, right? So, a lesson on copyright, check. A lesson on being, kind and empathetic online, check. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And that if we want our kids to be empathetic, if we want them to be aware, if we want them to be digital role models, then we need to engage in using technology with them. We need to co-construct norms with them. We need to show them what it looks like to have a positive digital identity. And I really found that work was lacking, but I also started to discover that there were teachers doing this. And so for me, when I think of social media and how relevant it is even today, what I did really was just celebrate and curate all of the awesome that I was seeing, all of the ways in which there were teachers that were doing this work, so that if you said, no, we can't do this, then you have an example of actually someone who is in a district very similar to yours that is doing this. Or no, we can't open this. Well, actually, here's a district that's doing this. So social media really was me shining a light and celebrating teachers and students who were using social media differently. And that's really what I continue to do every day. It's always an uphill battle. I feel I'm constantly, trying to say, how will our kids ever if we don't, right? And I think digital citizenship has, maybe as a result, I don't know why it has gotten a bad rap, but I think that when kids think of digital citizenship and they hear that term, they think of it as the anti-cyberbullying talks that they're getting. And there really is a disconnect from the sometimes very enriching ways kids use technology and adults use technology. And there just is a disconnect, right? Like how are we helping? And in the library, how am I helping to make those connections for kids? How am I sharing, or showcasing the good stuff that is happening, right? So that other kids can see it. And certainly, how are we mitigating, kids who are not being really thoughtful online? Well, for me, it's all been about student voice. voice, you know, and being able to have students who recognize that, you know, we need to do things differently. What could that look like? And really empowering kids to be transformative, to, you know, moderate social media. My social media account is run with myself and my book club, you know, because I need to be that digital role model for my kids. And I learn from them all the time in so doing, right? But if we're doing that work together, then where's the learning happening, you know? That's
Well,
kind of a long-winded answer to your question.
you know, it's a great answer. And I always think too, you know, thinking back to like, I mean, even when we started using social media at school, like I used it for a while and then I thought like, why am I the one that's doing all this when it's really, it's their library. It's, you know, it's their like peer group. They want to hear from each other. And it's so fun now because of course they come up and they're like, when are we going to have a TikTok? And I like get a little afraid. I'm like, oh gosh, but they love it. Cause even now, you know, years after we've had like Instagram and we've had Twitter, the kids will say like, can you take my picture? These are my high school kids, middle school kids. Can you post my picture? Can you post me doing this on Instagram? And it's always so cute and just fun to like see how much that means to them too. But also, like you said, you know, that leadership of having someone, I've heard them so many times, you know, referred to, well, you should talk to Mrs. Miller about that, or you should, you know, take a look at, you know, what's happening on even her, you know, social media accounts. And that to me is one of the most rewarding things about just being connected and being on social media.
So I have to tell you the story about what happened on Monday. Our book club got together and we were reading a book called Hunted by the Sky, which is a Canadian book. And the author is Tanaz Bethena, and it is a high school book. It's very, very good. And we ended up having really amazing conversations. And I said to the kids, I'm going to put this on Instagram and tag the author. And I'll never forget the first time I ever heard you speak, Shannon. You spoke about that young girl who Skyped with an author and how empowered she was. And I swear that is something that forever I've held in my heart. And whenever I can, I'm like, let's tag the author. If we're not studying dead white people or white men, then we can tag authors because there's contemporary literature out there that's amazing. Sorry, that's an aside. So anyway, we tag the kids and we construct what this Instagram post is going to look like. You know, we do that together, and then she responds to us, and the kids are just over the moon because it's not the first thing they think of. We as librarians, as educators, we think of social media and the incredible opportunities that it can be afforded when we use it to connect with other human beings. And sometimes our kids just don't think of that because they use social media very much in terms of celebrities. And what you were saying before about the child saying, take a picture of me, like that's a really great I always say discussion for, you know, do we need to take our picture of our face? Maybe we should just take a picture of our work, you know, because if we're concerned about this selfie, like this idea of selfies and likes, again, if we're not doing this in the context of our classrooms, the kids might never think twice about it because their reality or what they're seeing in other places is very, very different, right? So that was just so exciting, and it happened yesterday.
Awesome.
And it's just another example of how really, you know, there's so much potential for us to lead and even for kids to lead.
Well, and I think your point of, you know, just walking through what that looks like with kids, because you know, you're taking an author like when they're in a book club in high school, but think about the potential, even if they're not in high school, they could be in elementary of like, they're interested in, you know, we just had the NASA, you know, the big thing around like the rover landing, like how cool. But having the kids, you know, say to us, like what they want to look for, maybe a career that they want or some place that they're really passionate about. And, you know, being in a small town in Iowa, like it has opened up, you know, the world for us. But, you know, you always go back to like having those conversations and just like, you know, you speak about having them be leaders in this digital world and for themselves, which is cool. There's a new book, just a little side note. There's a new book from, and you can use it with your high school kids too. It's from Capstone and it's called Selfie. And it's this little squirrel, and it's all about that though. It's just a great conversation, when we're talking about like the pictures and just them being friends and, those conversations though that are just so important to have, I think is so great.
I always share, it's so interesting, like in the research, like I also always try to temper sort of what I'm seeing with my students with the past, right? So when I was doing my master's research, I have a specialization in digital citizenship and social media and education. And I remember reading this article, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's this idea that the selfie has really existed for centuries. And then when I was young, my eyes were crossed. I was so bullied. It was awful. But my eyes were crossed, and my parents would never let me take a picture with my glasses on, ever. And they would take literally hundreds of pictures of me, hundreds. And then we would go to the store and get them developed so that they could find that one that my eyes didn't look quite so crossed, that they would then share with people. And I'm just like, how is that different? Like I know it's different. Do you know what I mean? But I also think those are important conversations to have. What does it mean to put your best foot forward? And what does it mean to have a selfie? And do we care so much about what others think about us that if we don't get enough likes, we would take it down? What is that really, right? Like what's going on really? Because I think ultimately, as teacher librarians, we're also media specialists, and we recognize, we help teachers to create media, and we help teachers deconstruct media. We help students do that. We know that the more we do that, the more they understand how that media is a construct, right? That media has a interest, like, values, that, that it's probably there to make money, that whoever is consuming our media has a point of view. Like all of those really important media lessons come through again when we engage in making and deconstructing media. And it doesn't even have to be social media yet, but all of those lessons are so important, especially when kids are consuming their news via media. Kids are spending lots of time in games where they have ads, like it's a media rich world. And so, what a disservice we're doing to our kids if we're not having those courageous conversations, and if we're not, creating deconstructing media.
I know it's always important for our little ones, to our older ones, to our adults and families too, right?
Yes, for sure.
So, now we've been in this pandemic, and I'm just like wondering, how does it look different? Like, because you're not back with your kids face to face. And so has it changed? Have you had to add anything? Like all these, I was at a appointment today and we started talking about like Zoom. And then I was at a store a little bit, and he was asking me these questions about like, well, just that fatigue that you have. And so I'm just curious of how you're dealing with that with your kids.
So again, I'm in a high school. We're in Ontario. We had a lockdown from Christmas until last week. And this week, we do have students in the school. We have, I don't know, I think in some states you call it the high flex model, or the concurrent model. It's not awesome. I don't know that anything is awesome really, but we do have kids who are excited to be here and are in the school. We have kids in our elementary schools face to face, but you have the choice if you want to keep your kids at school or you want to keep your kids at home. So we have a cohort A, a cohort B, and a cohort C. Cohort A comes on day 1, cohort B comes on day 2, cohort C is always at home. So it's interesting, right? So teachers have really required, especially at the beginning, in September, we started in this model and now have come back to this model, really supporting teachers. So my role as a teacher librarian had to shift because the library space is closed, which is so sad. Like every day I want to cry when I get here, but But so it really has moved more into, it moved into teacher support. Having said that, social media is really the only way I continue to connect with our kids, right? So I have a YouTube channel where I create like troubleshooting videos for them, and we're really experimenting with, a live stream on, we have our student council. I moderate the student council, and we're going to do a live stream Gimkit game on Friday morning for Black History Month. Let's see how that goes. So it's been really interesting because I think I've just had to pivot. So am I still leading? I think so. There have been, as exhausted as teachers are, I have also had teachers say a couple of things. Number one, I would like to try something different because the way it worked before is not effective. And so it's been incredible for me to be able to co-plan and co-teach, and then come into virtually with classrooms with kids. I worked with a science teacher. I had never worked with a science teacher before, but it was so cool. We engaged in the design thinking process. The kids created prototypes for an invention that would meet one of the sustainable learning UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then we went into Flipgrid. They shared their prototypes with 2 different classes in the world. And then they fixed their whatever it was, and they could use Tinkercad, or they could use Minecraft, or they could create a physical prototype. And here's a science teacher who, even though every week I share like a tip of the week or whatever, she had never really understood how Flipgrid worked, right? But needed me to kind of be there with her and work alongside her. And then she said, oh my gosh, I don't know why I never used this before, and can see it working in different ways. Teachers are overwhelmed, they're bombarded, and they look to us as teacher librarians to continue to work alongside them, meet them where they are. In some cases, it's trying something totally new, like next week I'm working on Breakout EDU, and now I have a geography classes working in Minecraft, like things that I was trying to do in person that suddenly I'm able to do online. Very interesting. And other teachers who are just trying to stay afloat, and I'm supporting them when their tech isn't working, when their students are struggling, and then of course there's the research and information literacy pieces. But it's been really interesting just to see how you continue to lead, but what that looks like maybe just looks a little bit different right now.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Like, I'm so thankful for all the collaboration, and it's not like just because COVID might end, in the future, hopefully it's not going, I think that part is not going to change. And I am so thankful for these new ways to be leaders, and even to empower our teachers even more to be leaders in these digital spaces. And that is one of my huge takeaways from, the last almost year now. And we've had conversations about this at school, like with my superintendent, we spoke about that. And it's that part is just, I'm just so thankful and grateful for that time. And so it's exciting to hear what's going on at your school too. I love it.
Yeah, I know, it's fun.
It is. Well, you are always an inspiration, my dear friend. And I can't wait to get your picture book. I can't wait for your next book. And I just can't even wait to see you in person. And I hope that is soon. And Jennifer, where can everyone find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram. The handle is at Casa-Todd, CasaTodd, and I blog, and you can find information about my books and my resources on jcasatodd.com. That's my website.
Great. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, and stay warm. Enjoy the rest of your school year, and we will catch up soon. And for all of you listening, thank you for joining us, and I can't wait for you to join the next episode. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for the Future Ready Librarian podcast, Leading from the Library. I would like to also thank our sponsor, Follett Learning, for their amazing continued support.